When a franchise has been around for as long as Pokemon has, it's bound to have a few sore thumbs amongst its lineup of perfect digits. There are those moments when you have to look back and try to comprehend what in the world just happened. Pokemon may generally be a whimsical and nonchalant adventure, but after nearly 20 years of existence, it's seen some pretty freaky stuff. So let's talk about some of it, for no other reason than I thought it would be fun. To keep things more interesting, I'm opening up this list to all Pokemon media. Also, while I won't be considering species of Pokemon for this list, individual examples of said species are fair game. Let's get trippy. I know we may not often question this because video games, but let's take a second and think about the protagonists and their muteness. The entire main series, as well as most of the spin-offs, feature a silent protagonist. That in itself isn't particularly strange, as a great portion of the industry also features this trope, but in Pokemon it's a bit different. Unlike other examples, the Pokemon protagonists are consistently shown to at least be able to communicate. Oftentimes, they'll be asked a question, reply with an ellipsis, which is then followed up by the NPC reacting as though a real answer had been given. Even when you get the opportunity to talk to a protagonist from a previous game, they still say nothing. What secrets do these ellipses contain? Is it Morse code? Is it Braille? Or is there something a little more extrasensory going on here? Could this be the reason why 10-year-olds have defeated the Pokemon champions so often? Have they been using their telepathic powers to secretly alter the minds of their enemy Pokemon and give themselves an advantage? How else could a 10-year-old defeat an entire criminal organization? Why else would the enemies in the game start so weak and gradually become stronger throughout the journey? It all makes sense now. I've caught on to your little conspiracy, Pokemon protagonists, and I won't rest until... Pika? What happened? Where am I?
Oh, you're at the Pokemon Center, sir. You had a nasty run-in with some rebels, but we'll take good care of you.
Yeah, rebels. May I ask who you are?
I'm Nurse Joy.
Say, didn't you used to work at the center in Vermilion? And Castelia? And Lumios?
Oh, no. Those would be my twin sisters. We're all related, and we all became nurses.
Really?
Yeah, our parents had a sick sense of humor.
Uh-huh. By the way, who brought me here?
Oh, Officer Jenny found you while she was patrolling and carried you here straight away.
Jenny? I thought she was still in Azalea Town. And Fortree. And Veilstone.
Well, Jenny also has twin sisters who are also all police officers.
Nurse Joy, how much medication am I on right now?
Absolutely none.
Okay, perfect. Sure, in Season 1 it was a kind of funny running gag, but now that we're all the way into Kalos, it's getting absurd. There are literally dozens of Joys and dozens of Jennys throughout the world now. And while they all appear the same, at least for the most part, according to Brock and Tracy, they all have unique features, some a bit more obvious than others. So why are there so many of these? After all, a mother would probably split in half before she could give birth to that many children at once, and having subsequent children rarely results in them having the same appearance. Personally, I have 3 theories. Firstly, Mewtwo is up to his cloning shenanigans again. Second, scientists have been training Zoroark to pose as nurses and police officers. Heaven knows why. Third, and probably most likely...
I'm Judy. Welcome to Boston City.
Enjoy the nightmares! Play that funky music! Among other reasons, a lot of people rip on Pokemon Coliseum for having a generally boring atmosphere and not as much personality as the other games from the main series. To that I say, Ludicolo Rave! Would you believe me if I told you that this is the first boss in the game? Needless to say, he sure sets a tone. Cypher admin Mira B was once a professional dancer, but then became a Pokemon trainer after joining Cypher. However, he never wanted to give up the dancing, so he decided to train a bunch of fun-loving goofballs like himself. You're tasked to take him down after he stole this guy's Plusle. He knows you're coming, and yet when you get there, he's just having a big dance party. Just him, his Ludicolo, and his physics-defying haircut. The first battle with him is pretty easy, just 4 Ludicolo and a Shadow Pokemon that's impossible to name without using an offensive Asian accent. It's interesting to note, though, that Miraby is the only admin who doesn't possess one of the legendary dogs, instead opting for a Seeded. Subsequent encounters show him branch out to a larger variety of Pokemon, but he never abandons his Ludicolo altogether. But let's be honest, you're probably not even listening to a word I'm saying right now, because his battle music is too infectious to ignore. I could dance to it, but that joke's been done a little too often for my liking. Ah, screw it. Praise be to Mirapi, Lord of the Dance! Manga as a medium is about as strange as it gets. Even if you can wrap your head around reading backwards, its very nature lends itself to a lot of experimentation and, by extension, weirdness. Pokemon has been fairly concise in its other media, but in manga there are no rules. Why, if you wanted, you could even have an entire saga about people who transform into Pokemon furries! Yeah, that's not strange at all! Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Pokemon Reburst, a manga with one such concept. And it is weird! So, to summarize, trainers do not control teams of Pokemon like in most other Pokemon media here. Instead, the essence of Pokemon exists inside these crystals called Burst Hearts. Certain people are able to connect with these essences and can merge with the Pokemon inside to augment their physical abilities, gain that Pokemon's type advantages, and dramatically alter their appearance. These people are known as Burst Warriors, and yeah, seeing creepy anthro fan art actually show up in a real Pokemon product is pretty off-putting. But to their credit, it looks like they at least try to take it seriously. I mean, other than the whole merging with their trainer thing, the Pokemon seem to behave normally. They can still evolve, they still get stronger through battles, and they can still form close connections with their trainers, albeit in a much more bizarre way. But I'm sorry, I can't get past this. Chase it away! Chase it away! Pokemon Conquest is one of those ideas that really shouldn't have worked. I mean, you're taking a series of colorful, kid-friendly, turn-based RPGs and mashing that up with a tactical RPG series based around Japanese history. One of these things is not like the other. And while it's certainly far from conventional, it still manages to be a pretty fun game with the right mindset. I mean, okay, it's not nearly as accessible as the main series, but it's kind of neat to see the franchise looked at from such an unruly perspective. For example, instead of trainers, you have warlords. It's a bit ridiculous, yes, but also plenty of awesome with some suspension of disbelief. And hey, the warlords have some of the coolest character designs to ever come out of this franchise. I mean, you've got the scariest ponytail in the East, the Onion Knight's better-looking sister, Super Saiyan 3, and even... Fat, creepy mime? Okay, real talk, what happened with Yoshimoto? I understand that the outfit and the makeup is all based on a traditional Japanese art form that the real Yoshimoto was apparently a big fan of, but he just looks so out of place. He looks like he should be in a theater, not on the battleground. But you know what? If his partner Pokemon had been Mr. Mime, I really wouldn't have minded. Yes, the art of Mime and the art of No are rather different, but at least then he could intentionally bear a small resemblance to his Pokemon like, I don't know, all the rest of the warlords. But no, his partner Pokemon is Pineco. Freaking Pineco! Now, I mean no disrespect to any Pineco fans out there, but hear me out. Nobunaga wields Hydreigon, Hideyoshi wields Monferno, Kunoichi wields Weavile, Nene wields Crobat, and you have a bagworm. Just saying. Last but not least, he seems to have a strange obsession with a game called Pokemari. I mean, okay, everybody needs a hobby, but do you really need to go around screaming about Pokemari during an intense battle? I mean, who in their right mind would go around yelling to everybody about their favorite game?
What a loser, am I right?
Alright team, we're about to start work on the next episode of Pokemon. This time, Ash is going to face a gym leader that was pretty overpowered in the game and gave kids a lot of trouble. So, how do we want to go about it?
Make her a creepy telepath.
Transfer Brock and Misty's souls into dolls!
Maybe not scar all the kids for life? I apologize for the overused meme, but how else do you think Sabrina came to be? I mean, okay, there's only so many directions you could go in when faced with a psychic-type gym leader, but this was pretty overkill. Sabrina developed her outstanding psychic abilities as a young girl. Over the years, she became less and less emotional in order to be more devoted to developing her powers, and thus she dove further into her own mind. When she ended up transforming her own mother into a doll, she broke down mentally and manifested her desire for fun and emotion into the form of a little girl, leaving the actual Sabrina completely emotionless. So, years after making that, let's call it what it is, Horcrux, she became the Saffron City gym leader where Ash meets up with her. She communicates with her Pokemon telepathically, giving her a clear advantage, and apparently everyone who can't defeat her in battle gets turned into a toy for the fun personality. And apparently there are no rules for gym leaders involving anything like, I don't know, don't kidnap everyone who loses to you. So anyway, Ash loses to her the first time, but manages to escape. He goes and catches a Haunter in order to have a better type advantage, which ended up being a bizarre episode in its own right, then returns and loses a second time. Ash escapes, but Brock and Missy are transformed into dolls, and they even meet up with Sabrina's mother, who is still a doll herself after all this time. And finally, after being tortured, killed by a falling chandelier, and losing his friends to a literal psychopath, how does Ash finally manage to bring down this unstoppable machine of pure intelligence? By getting her to laugh.
Survey says... Pretty lame. That was pretty lame.
What even? Who created this idea? Who approved it? Who animated it? Who published it? I just need to know. I won't deny that the episodes with Sabrina are some of the most memorable in the entire series, but there's a point where it just becomes too much. Make her a creepy psychic all you want, but I'd prefer if you stayed away from the implied matricide and mass murder, thanks. Of all the places one might expect to find a weird and amazing character, my guess is that the trading card game for the Game Boy would not be your first guess. Can't say I blame you, but for those of us who have trekked through this oft-forgotten title, what awaits is what I dubbed the strangest trainer battle of the entire series. After talking to various members of the Water Club, guess which Pokemon type they like to use, you'll be dropped hints about a strange man who visits the clubs from time to time, and they'll warn you not to approach him should you find him. So naturally, you do exactly the opposite. And then you're met with this face. Meet Imakuni, or, excuse me, Imakuni? He's a secret boss in the Pokemon trading card game, and wow, if it weren't for him, this game would be completely forgettable. Before the battle begins, he sings to you and then asks you to dance. It's Mirabee all over again, but it only gets stranger from there. His deck consists mostly of water and psychic type Pokemon, with the occasional Farfetch to keep your head wheeling. His deck is actually not that difficult to be honest, at least when compared to some of the other battles in the game, but one particular trainer card adds more question marks to this battle than an overly expressive YouTube comment. This is a self-titled trainer card, which, first of all, is illegal to use in competitive play, but also does nothing but confuse his own active Pokemon. Top it all off with him giving you 4 booster packs after beating him, as opposed to the usual 2, and you've got one unusual experience awaiting you. So where did this man even come from? Well, apparently, this guy is a Japanese promotional character for the Pokemon franchise, portrayed by Tomoaki Imakuni, who, among other things, performed some of the music from the Pokemon anime. He's not an uncommon sight in Japanese advertisements of the franchise, and even made a few cameos in the manga as well as several joke trading cards, all of which were only released in Japan. So yeah, Japanese players might see this guy as a familiar face, but for those outside the loop, it's just really freaking weird. You know, if you go back and watch the first few seasons of Pokemon again and really pay attention to them, you'll notice that they got away with a lot of things that they would never even attempt nowadays. Even ignoring some of the more infamous examples, the early seasons featured a number of unsavory elements like toting guns, sexual comments, and even a dominatrix. Wait, what? Yeah, she may have only showed up for pretty much one episode, but Jessie Belle, well, she exists. She was originally a childhood friend of James, however their parents forced the two of them into an arranged marriage. This seemed to go pretty well until Jessie Belle began acting creepy. She started following James everywhere he went, causing him to run away from home. Years later, when James meets his fiancée again, very little has changed other than her new disturbing resemblance to Jessie. She lures him with the family inheritance into her torture chamber, complete with workout equipment, axe, spiked ball, and human dartboard. She then proceeds to begin chasing and whipping James, while his parents just look on nonchalantly sipping tea.
"Oh yes, Jezebel, that last lash was jolly good. More crumpets, madame!"
He only manages to escape thanks to the Growlithe he owned as a child coming to his rescue. Who made this character? Whoever did must have truly been a foolishly foolish fool. So, you're a creator behind the Pokemon anime. You're all the way up to the Unova region, and general interest in the show has gone downhill. How do you go about raising your show up again? Well, Silent is a pretty good place to start. I mean, okay, he's still not as widely recognized as characters like Brock and Misty, but he was still a good effort. Silent is one of those special kinds of weird where he always manages to surprise you. He's the kind of eccentric goofball who seems to exaggerate the world around him at all times, usually to hilarious results. I'd say the best word to describe Silent is probably energetic. Everything he does, he's completely enthralled in it. When he gets excited, he practically goes full-on fanboy. When he's scared, even if it's of something completely non-threatening, he plays it up to Andaro levels. I guess in that sense, he's got a sort of SpongeBob quality to him, having all the skills and amenities of adulthood while still retaining the personality and outlook of a child. This could have easily become annoying, but you always get the sense that Silent wants to do good. And while he may not always succeed, his passion and his trademarked optimism keeps Silent on the "you're okay" side of things. And unlike characters like Jessie Belle and Sabrina, who showed up for only a couple of episodes then disappeared, we get to watch Silent's antics for a good portion of 3 entire seasons. That means more mood swings, more random knowledge, more being the connoisseur of everything, and especially more costumes. Sign me up for that! Yumta! At number 1, it's the Grandmaster of all things strange, Guildmaster Wigglytuff from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers. Let me tell you, we've seen some weird characters on this list, but not only does Wigglytuff top them all in craziness, he's also one of the most awesome characters to ever come out of the franchise. When you first meet up with Wigglytuff in the game, he comes off as really naive and immature. I mean, it's nice that he calls everyone his friend, but you'd think an established leader wouldn't throw a tantrum every time he can't have a perfect apple, let alone one so fierce that all the other explorers fear his wrath so greatly. And come on, when the obvious bad guys of Team Skull enter the picture, Wigglytuff isn't suspicious of them at all, and actually makes it easier for them to bully the protagonists. Wake up! You've got a job to do! But as the game progresses, Wigglytuff's true colors really start to shine through. Despite appearing naive towards the beginning, Wigglytuff actually has a brilliant mind. Even as an Igglybuff, he was able to decipher clues and maps that other, more experienced explorers could not. He even helps the protagonists figure out the secret behind their relic fragment late in the game. Plus, when the situation calls for it, Wigglytuff is able to put aside the fun and games and take important requests very seriously. He treasures friendships, he always has an encouraging word to say, and at the end of the day, he's done some very awesome and respectable things during his life. And oh yeah, he can kick butt too when he feels like it. It's totally unexpected due to his personality and, well, being a Wigglytuff, but he can easily take down Pokemon that give others trouble single-handedly, and he can still explore with the best of them. And yet, even while doing that, he still smiles and shouts Yumta and obsesses over perfect apples like always. Wigglytuff is just one of many examples of characters in this game who are far more than they initially appear to be, and he might just be the coolest character in the game for it. Wigglytuff, thank you for all the laughs, all the surprises, and especially all the weirdness. This has been the Phoenix King. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. In the meantime, remember that the world would be pretty boring without a healthy dose of weird every now and again.